Yeah, you can go on with your question. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. I
Yeah,
said
can you
I
hear
have
me?
a question. Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I said I have a question concerning the assignment you gave to us. That's why I haven't submit. I'm having a
Okay.
error in my code, but I haven't figured the error yet. But I'm not at home now, so I'm not with my system. Maybe when I get home before we finish class, I'll be able to share my screen with you so you can help me find the error in my code, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you, sir.
But can you explain the error you're having?
Yes. The error is that in the after our image, the next title, the dividing title, the place that we write dividing title, the web of something like that, the web of clinical research 3.0 or something like that. So I write it, but I was unable to put it on horizontal to each other. And I write the code very correctly. I even checked the video. Maybe I made a mistake in the code, but I didn't find any mistake there.
Okay. Okay, no problem. Once you have access to your system and you can share your screen, please let me know.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, to run over what we discussed about yesterday, we introduced ourselves to JavaScript,
Yes.
and I said JavaScript is a browser-side programming language. All right, so it is not like HTML, which is a markup language, or rather, is it like CSS, which is a style sheet, right? Okay, so like I said, yesterday we introduced ourselves to JavaScript, which I said is a programming language. It's a browser-side programming language, right? It is not like HTML, which is a markup language that we use in building the structure of our code, but rather it is a complete programming language that adds functionality and interactiveness to our website. And then we decided to talk about the data types in JavaScript. And we talked about the two division, which is non-primitive and primitive. So in other programming languages, they might not necessarily divide them into non-primitive and primitive, right? But you would surely have sets of data types that are not dependent on any other, right? And most of almost all programming languages have numbers, strings, and then booleans as the non-primitive data types. Then you can have others along with them, um, like null and undefined. But numbers and strings are you will see them in every programming language. Numbers, strings, and booleans. And we said numbers are further divided into integers and floats. Integers are numbers that do not have decimal in them, while floats are the ones that have decimal. Then we have our string data type, and we talk about how we can concatenate strings together, which means join strings together. Yeah, and we went on to talk about variables, and I said variables are like containers that are used to hold or store values for us. So anytime we need a particular value, we want to work with a value, we can easily call that variable, which is a space in a memory, right? So actually, the way the computer works, right, is that for every time you write an alphabet, a character like A, right, your computer assigns a particular space for that character and stores it, right? So that's how the computer works. So you can't actually see all of those things. Okay, so it is when you use low level languages like C, C++, you notice that you would have to create a space by yourself so you don't start using memories as anyhow, right? So you restrict the way you use memories. Okay, so when you write an alphabet or a number, your computer is assigning a random space in your computer memory and then storing that value there. Okay. So, but when you write three in one place and you write another three another place, they are not actually the same values you're using. So it's like the first three was stored in a particular space in your computer, while the next three was stored in another space. Okay. But the idea of variables is that once you create a value three, let's say you have a value three and you store it inside a variable, right? So what it does is that the tree is stored in a particular space on your computer system, and then that variable is also stored in another space. So anytime you refer to that variable, it quickly points you to that value, three. So you don't have to create three anywhere again in your computer memory anymore. All you have to do is call that variable and it brings that number out for you every time. So that's what variables are. They're like containers that don't store values. Okay? And we talked about how we can create them. We said we can use the lets, we can use const, and we can use var. And from some examples we did, um, an example we did yesterday from our app, we used let here. So this is um side projects I'm working on, and as you can see, I haven't actually done anything yet, and I'm already writing about 194 lines of code. Okay, so that is why we don't write our script inside the HTML, because the HTML is already 144, right? So now putting in the JavaScript codes also inside of it, it will make your code hard to read because you now have so many lines of code inside one file. Okay, so when we get to um, more advanced courses like React, you see how um, you can separate your files in order to reduce your code. It's called code splitting, right? So you start reducing the codes you're writing, you start separating them into different files so that way it is more easy to read, all right, and you're not stressing yourself so much. Okay, that's for it so far. And we are still in week 5, and today we'll be talking about conditionals, logic, arrays, and objects. So remember, I said we talked about arrays yesterday. We said it is a non-primitive data type, right? And we said it is created using the square brackets, and then each of the items inside of it, sorry, each of the items inside of it are separated using commas. So you can have different data types inside. You can have a number, you can have a string, you can have a boolean, you can also have an array, right? As well as you can also have an object inside of an array. So non-primitive data types can take anything as a value inside of it. And we talked about them yesterday. So now we are going to see some methods peculiar with arrays, because yesterday we talked about few methods that are peculiar with string, and we talked about dot length, which gives you the length of your string. So today we're going to see some methods for arrays. Okay, all right. So let's start with this first. So over here we have a variable. We have a variable called first list, and inside it is an array, right, of three things. So there are three items in this array. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so over here we have this variable that was created with const, which means this automatically becomes a constant, right? And now inside of it, we now created an array. So we are storing an array inside of it, and it's an array of three items. The first being one, the next two, and the next three, right? And from yesterday we talked about index, and we said index is like a position for items, right? So it means this one, which is the first item, is at index 0 because indexes start from 0 and runs down through to the last number. So 1 is at a position of 0, which means it is the first item. 2 is at an index of 1, which means it is the second item. While 3 is at an index of 2, which means it is the third item. Then we also have a different variable here called second list, right? So this second list, what we stored inside is another set of numbers 4, 5, and 6. So now down here, what we have is another variable created, said third list. And so the value here is that we took first list, which is this, right? And using this method, concat. So concat is a method of array, which means join. So remember in strings, how we did the concatenation of strings is we use plus in order to join them together. But now we are using a particular keyword in JavaScript, concat, which means join this thing for me. So we place it on the first variable, which is an array. Then using the dot notation, we now write concat, and then inside this parenthesis we put in the second array that we want to join together. So once you do that, it will now join first list and second list together to form one array, and then the value you get there will now be stored inside this array. So over here when you console.log third list, you have these two joined together printed out for you. So you now have an array of six items, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So concat is the first method we'll be learning, although you might not be using it so much, but it's just good that you see it here now. So concat is the first method, which means which purpose is to join two or more arrays together. So the next is how to get the length of an array. So if you see here, we have a variable numbers, and we are assigning this array of 5 items, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, into it. So down here, what this is saying is console.log numbers.length. So here, it doesn't log out the value of numbers to your console. Instead, it will simplify this operation here. It will carry out that operation there, right? And then give you the value from what is gotten there. So which means this length, what it does is that it tries to calculate the length of your array, okay? And when it gets the length, that's what we printed out. So these are 5 items. So you have 5 printed out on you have 5 printed out on your screen. So let me open up our still index.html. Let me open this up using live server. Okay. And I'm going to show you how you can actually write JavaScript code inside your console, because it's a browser side language. It can also be written in your console. So this is our HTML, index.html. So let me go to our developers tool, which is going to inspect. Okay, so when you get to inspect, you come down to console. Okay, so this is it. So if you don't want to write your JavaScript code here in your script.js file, because it is a browser-side programming language, you can also write it inside the browser, all right, inside this console. So let's say I want to create a variable. Let's say I want to create, let's first, sorry, let first be equal to. So let me have an array of 1, 2, and 3. Then I close this off and I'll do enter. So now I've created a variable called first, and inside it I'm storing an array of 1, 2, 3. Okay. So next up, I'll create the second one. Let's say let second be equal to 4, 5, and 6. So I have created another variable. If you don't believe me, let's try to see now. So let's log. So let's say console.log first. So once I do console.log, you see it printing out the value of first, which is 1 to 3. So which means we can actually experiment this new method we just learned now. So let's try to join the two of them together. So to join them, we said you use the first variable, which is first, then we use dot concat, then dot concat, then our parentheses. So inside the parentheses, we put in the second variable that we want to join with the first one, and the name of the second variable is second. Okay, so once I do this, because we are in our console, it quickly prints out the value for us. So we now have an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is how you use the concat method in JavaScript. So uh, you can also come here and still do the same thing. Right, the same way you wrote it there, you can still come back here and do the same thing. Okay, okay. So now, in case you probably want to go through an array and find out the position of a particular item inside an array, there is a method for that, which is index of. Okay, so let's do an example here. Let me just copy this. Okay, let me clean out this once and paste it. So over here, I have a variable of fruits, and it has about 4 fruits inside of it. So now let's say instead of just 4 items, I had over 200 items inside of it, right? So I can start counting from the first down to a particular fruit before I know what position it is inside an array. So there has to be a short way of achieving that, right? So to do that, all I have to do is say I want to print to my console. Remember? So console.log. So inside console.log, I want to go inside fruits, right? And inside fruits, I want to find the index of something. So you see this method here that says index of. So inside this index of, I will now put in the value that I'm looking for. So let's say apple is somewhere in my array, but I don't know where it's at. So I will now put in apple as a string, not as a variable. So that's why you see me writing it inside the quote. But this array doesn't have apple. So let's see the value we would get. I save this and I go back to my browser. I see -1. Okay. So I don't know if this is good enough for you. Okay. So you see -1 printed out. So which means every time you use the index of method on an array to find an item, and that item is not inside that array, it will always return -1. It will always return -1 because it is not there. So now let's try it with an item inside our array. So let's say we use banana. I save this. So going back, you see 0, right? So which means banana is at the first position in our array. So this is a way you can use to find out an item. Probably inside the array has so many values, or you can't directly see the array, right? This is a short way of getting its index of. So you might not be able to see the use of this now, okay, but as you start carrying out projects, there might be some things you want to do if only this item is at this particular position in an array. All right, so that's where all of this comes in, and hopefully we'll take on projects that will show us how we can use one of these things. Okay, so the next method is includes, right? So includes just goes through your array to check and make sure that the particular item you're searching for is inside that array. So if it finds that value, it returns true. But if it doesn't find that value, it returns false. So back to this example where we did apple. So if this, instead of index of, if this was includes, so we are saying we want to check if apple is included in this our variable fruits, this our array, this our fruits array. So since apple is not inside, I'm expecting to get false returns to us. So you see that exactly false. But if it is inside, it will return true to you. So you can say index of and include somehow does the same thing, right? But they have their limitations and where their best practices. Okay, so but it's good that you know all of them and how to and you understand each of them. Okay, so now let's go into other ones. So the reason why some of these methods are important that you understand them is because of data structures and algorithms. So for when you apply for jobs, most of them don't ask you to build a website or a web application. So what they do is they give you data structure questions, right? And you're supposed to arrange the data inside an array on objects in order to get the answer. So that's where some of these methods come in. So this one is it says to cut out multiple items in range. It takes two parameters, the starting and the ending position. So that is why this documentation is needed because sometimes you would forget that you're supposed to put in attributes or parameters. Okay, but with this, it will constantly remind you of how to use a method the best way possible. So let's see what this is. From here, we have a variable numbers that is an array of 5 items, right? And over here, we are trying to print out numbers dot slice. Okay, so when you do not put in any parameter inside your slice method, right? What it does is that it copies everything. So which means I can copy it and store it inside another variable. So let's see. Okay, let's see an example. Okay, let's see an example here. Let's use this one as an example. So let's say I want to create another variable, and I'll say const. So let me say the variable name is cut, right? I just to say like something that was cut out from this. And inside this, I want to do fruits dot cut. Sorry, dot slice, right? So which means I'm expecting that it should copy everything here from fruits and put it inside cut. So down here, let me print out. Let me console.log cut. Let me console.log cut. So on save, I go back to my site. So now you see cuts. This is the value of cuts, which is the same as the value of fruits, right? So we've been able to copy one array and then put in those values we copied into another array, right? So that is for slice. So you can say it has no use because probably it's the same thing as the other array. So you can use the other array instead. Okay. So what if you wanted to only copy selected items? You want to copy just a few items. That's where this creating in attributes now comes in. So when you put in only one value, it takes that value as the starting point. So which means if I put 0 here, it takes the 0 index position as the starting point. And remember, banana is at index 0, so it starts copying from here. But because you put in only one value, it will copy everything. So it's the same as leaving your parameters empty, right? But now let's see from this example, they use 0 and numbers.length. Okay, this is a little bit technical, so let's skip this for now. So let's try something else. So let me put in two values. Let me say 0, comma 1. So 0, comma 1. So now let's go back to our code and see. So we see just one item, banana. I remember from our document it says cuts out multiple items in range. It takes two parameters, the starting and the ending position, which means it doesn't copy the item at the ending position. So it starts from the starting position, and then when it gets to the ending position, it just stops. It doesn't copy that. So it means if you want to copy banana and orange, you have to put a position higher than orange. And the position higher than orange is 2. So if I put this in and we go back to our code, you now see banana and orange because banana is at index 0 and orange is at index 1, as you can see here. Banana at index 0 and orange at index 1. So this is how you now copy things of your probably of your own choice. So now let's say we increase this from 0 to 1 and I save this. Let's go back to see. So we now see only orange because the starting position which we took as 1, all right, is where orange is at. Then the ending position is a mango, so it doesn't copy mango. So this is how you use slice to copy things you want to copy. But from this example, what they did here is first they said 0, then the next thing they did is numbers dot length. So let's do that also and see what we'll get. So let's say our starting point is 0, and then our ending point is fruits dot length. So the way JavaScript will carry out this operation is that it will first identify this part to get a value. Okay, and remember the length method is used to get the length of an array. So which means the length of this array is 4. So it means what this slice is in here is this is the same as slice, then the parenthesis 0, comma 4. So this is what everything here will be interpreted to. Okay, so it will start from the starting position 0, 1, 2, 3. But because there is no other position, it means it doesn't care. All right. So long as the last item is at a position less than this value we put here. So let's see what we get. So you have everything printed out for you again. So this is how you use slice to copy. So you can use slice in any way you want. If you now decide to say you want this -2, right? So it means 4 minus 2. So it means it does interpret this to 0, 2 here for you, and your operation is done. So that's how slice works. All right, so that's how slice works. Okay, is there any question on slice before I go on to the next? Because most of these methods have similar name and similar meaning. So is there any, do you need any clarification on this before I move forward? None, okay? Okay. So next is splice, and it says it takes three parameters: the starting position, the number of items to be removed, and the number of items to be added. So which means you can do more than just one thing with this splice. So you can remove a value using splice, and you can also add a value using splice as well. So let's see from this first one. So we have numbers again 1 to 5. Then we see numbers dot splice. So when you put numbers dot splice, it removes every value inside your variable, right? So it removes it automatically, it deletes everything inside of it automatically. So the only thing is that we are actually saving this, we are writing this, so we are hard coding the values here. That's just the difference, right? Because if this is a real application where you fetch, you store your values inside a database and you use the splice to remove, so it will automatically remove everything. It removes everything on your database, which means you can no longer get them again. So splice is that powerful. So let's see how it is done here. So let's say we use, instead of slice, we now use splice to get it. And I remove everything here. So once I remove it here, I want to print out code. Okay, so I'm storing the value inside code, right? So let's see what code is. No, we are not supposed to store. We are not supposed to store the value. We are supposed to print out fruits as a whole. So let's print fruits. All right. Fruits dot slice. Sorry. Okay. So doing this, we are supposed to remove everything, but you can see here, it's not removing it. Why? Because we are actually hard coding it over here. Okay, unlike database where it's not hard coded, it is dynamic, it just removes everything. But because we are hard coding it here, it's hard to actually see this effect come to in place, right? So let's see other means you can use splice. But once you start using APIs, it is not advisable that you splice directly from there, because to remove everything from your database since you're not hard coding. So now let's start putting items, splice 0 and 1. Okay, 0, 1. So you will now see that the first item has been taken out uh from the array, because we put in this, right? So it starts from this place, and the second value is the number of items you want to remove. Remember from our documentation, since the first one is starting position, then the second one is the number of items you want to remove. So it means if I increase this to 2 and I save this, the second one also goes up, right? So that's what splice is. But also, while it is used to remove, you can also add things inside by giving it a third value or a third parameter, right? So now, let's say after these two, I decide to put in, um, let me say, Apple, right? And I save. Let's see what happens now. On loading, you now see Apple replacing those other items you've removed. So you can instead substitute a value using splice, right? So over here, we're able to remove an item and also put in another item inside of it using the splice method. So that is what splice does. So remember the difference between slice. Slice is more of remove, read. You can do like directly. So any other thing you start putting here, if if after this one I use another comma again and I put in um, pineapple, it will also add this item inside our array. So if we go back here and we check this out, you can now see immediately after apple, you can now see pineapple listed out there. Okay, so that's how to use splice. And remember, like I said, you will forget these methods and their uses, all right? But the idea that there's something that does this particular thing, right? Once you have that knowledge that there's something JavaScript that performs this particular operation, it becomes easy for you. So all you have to do is go to Google and ask for the method in JavaScript that does this particular function. Okay, so we'll just talk about a few other methods before we move on to the next. And these methods are things you use more often than the other ones. And the first one is push. Okay, so push is used to add items to an array, all right? But it doesn't just add it, it adds that item from the bottom. from to the last place, right? So it's like a stack. So it's like a stack of clothes. Like when you have the bag, the first item you put inside goes down to the bottom. Then the next one you put goes on top of the other one. Okay. So it's just that this time you're reversing the positions. So let's see what we are trying to say. So I'll take off this part. So let's print out our fruits first. Let's print out our fruits first to see what we have. So this is what we have. So now let's say we want to push apple into this array, which means we want to add another fruit inside. So we can say fruits dot push. So inside push, you can now put in the value that we want to add, which is apple, and we save. On doing this, you now see, sorry, my browser is loading. So you now see apple added to the ending of the array, to the last side. So it's like starts on top of the other ones that are inside. So this is what push does for you. It adds items to the last position of your array. Push. So this is what push does for you. The next one is, so it means, so since we added a string using this method, it means if you want to add a number or a boolean, all you do is say fruits dot push. So let's say I want to add the boolean true. I won't put it inside double quotes, because this now becomes a string. So I don't want to push a string inside. I want to push a boolean. So it means I have to take out the quotes and just leave it as true. So JavaScript, the way JavaScript works is that it runs the code line by line. So it will start from here and move on to here, move on to here. So it means it will first add apple to this array, then it will now come down here and add true to it. So going back to our browser, you now see that we have banana, orange, mango, lemon, apple, which was the first push command, and then you now have true, which is a boolean. As you can see, it is not inside a quote, which means it is not a string, right? It is a boolean. So this is how you use push in adding a value to your array. So if splice is not doing things the way you want it to do, you can use pop and push to do that. So let's see the next method. The next method is called pop, and it says it removes item in the end. So why push is used to add items to the ending of your array, pop removes that last item. So let me take off this push, and let me remove this one also. And instead I say pop. So for pop, you don't have to put in any attributes in here. Okay, so this is how you use it. So once you write this, JavaScript understands that you're trying to remove the last item from this array. That's what pop does for you. So remember that still consider plugin puts. So going back to our screen, let me refresh this. Okay, so on refreshing, you can now see banana, orange, and mango. Lemon has been taken out of our array for us because we use pop. So if you call pop down here again, it means it removes the next last item, which is mango. So on refreshing, let's see what we get. We now see only banana and orange. So while push is used to add items to the ending of an array, pop is used to remove those items from the array. Okay. The next is on shift. Says adding array elements in the beginning of the array. So what on shift does is that on shift does the opposite of what push does. Remember, push adds an item to the ending of an array. On shift, on the other hand, adds item, but it adds it to the starting of an array. So let's say we want to on shift, right? So we want to unshift Apple. So this means we want to be able to add this particular item to the starting of this array. So banana will no longer be the first item in our array. Apple will now be the first item. So going back to our browser, you cannot see Apple positioned here. So before now, when we use push, Apple was positioned at this side. But now Apple is now our first item. If you open this up, see the index of Apple is 0 and banana is now 1. So that is on shift. One last method is shift. Sorry, let me look for shift. Okay, I skipped it before. So shift is the next one. So what shift does is that it removes one item from the beginning. So on shift is the opposite of push, then shift is the opposite of pop because it removes an item, but it does it from the starting of the array. So what pop does from the end, shift does it from the start. And that would be the most of the methods to be talking about for today. I will be giving us an exercise from here to work through during for the weekday till next class. And so, if there's any questions so far on this, I would like you to ask those questions so we can correct ourselves for moving on. Any questions so far on methods in arrays?
Yes, sir. There is a question, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I just want to ask. I understand the way you explain everything, but I just if we don't use the all this code as an example, I mean we don't use it in creating a file or something like that. I don't think we can get it very well. I just want to ask. Maybe a project on it, sir, that we work on it. I just want to know about that, sir.
Yes, there is a project on it, and there's a project on it. But before those projects, we'll see how to take up these exercises so that we can
Okay, sir.
first get used to the tools. Yes, you have to get used to the business before we start taking out the project on it.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I
Yeah.
understand, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. So the next would be conditional loops, rather. So the next will be loops. Okay, conditional logic. Okay. Okay, let's see conditionals first. Okay, conditionals. So what conditionals is in programming is that you want to carry out a set of functions only when a particular condition is met. And in English language, what you use for condition is if. If this is true, this should be done. If this is not true, all these other things should be done. All right. So that's the same thing here in programming. So for conditions, we use if statements for writing conditions. And there is a syntax for JavaScript conditions. So, and like I said before, and I've been saying before, every programming language has conditionals, has conditions, right? And they have this if condition. So the only difference is how they write it on their own programming language. So the way it is written in other programming language is different from the way JavaScript writes theirs. So the way JavaScript writes their own conditional is they first start with if. The if keyword is very important in JavaScript. All right. So it says if, then the next is your parenthesis. So it is inside this parenthesis, you now put in the value or the condition that you want to be met, right? So it is here you now put in the condition that you want to be met. So after the condition, you now use your curly brackets. So what you write inside the curly brackets is the function that you want to be carried out if the condition is met. So what I'm saying, if I can get an example here, okay, yes. So from this example, we have a variable called num, and we're assigning the value 3 to it. All right. So that's first. So the next is, let me write this condition. Let me write it again from scratch here. Is that to write it, you start with if, then your parenthesis. So inside this parenthesis, you want to put in a condition that you want to be met. And the condition is that you want to check if the value of num is greater than 0. So you want to know if num is greater than 0. If this is true, then you want something to happen, right? So if this is true, if this condition is true, then you want to print out something here. So you now say you want to console dot log. All right. So you can either say true or whatever you want. Okay. So for now, I'm just going to copy this. I'm not going to take this off in short since it's the same syntax, right? So coming again, I said this line of code using the if keyword is trying to tell you that you're testing for a particular condition to be met. And the condition we want to be met is that num should be greater than 0. So if it carries out this operation by checking if num is greater than 0 and your final value is true, because conditions always returns a boolean, it either returns true or false. So if the condition is correct, it will return true. But if the condition is not correct, it will return false. So right now, when it tests this, remember the value of num is 3. And we all know 3 is bigger than 0. So it means the value here will be true. And because what this condition has given to you is true, this operation will now be carried out. So what is this operation saying? Okay, let's start from basic. Let me say number is a positive number, right? So we want to print out number is a positive number if this condition is true. So let's check it out. So now in our browser, we now have number is a positive number printed out because num is actually greater than 0. So let's say if this was minus 3, right? Now minus 3 is not greater than 0. So which means what we are getting here is false. right? So if this is false, it means this line will not run for us. Please can you confirm if you can hear me? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you, sir.
Okay. So since this is false, it means this will not run. And so if you go to your browser, you see that nothing is printed out on your console. Let me refresh. So after refreshing, you see nothing is printed out on your console. Okay, so this is how conditional work. So moving on, what we want to do here is that we want to show the value of the norm inside this statement. So if the value is 3, we want it to show here that 3 is a positive number. If the value here is 5, we want this to change accordingly, right? So we need to make this dynamic, all right? So that is where um, we now go back to yesterday's discussion of using dollar sign and curly brackets and none, because we want to write this variable, right? And this is backtick we are using here, not single quotes. Remember, with backtick, you can be able to write a variable and a string together. So now we've only modified our console to show that 3 is positive number. If this was 5, we only have to change it in one place, right? We don't have to change it here anymore. And automatically, our value here will change once this loads up. Yeah, once it loads up, you now see 5 um, is a positive number here for us. So that's what that example does. Is showing us or talking about here. So this is how conditions are run. So but in real life, you can have a situation where if this is true, you want this to happen. But if it is false, you want this other thing to happen. Right here, what we've done is if this is true, then do this. But if it is false, I don't that has nothing to do with me. It doesn't concern me. That's what this statement says. But this next one means you want to test the condition if it is true. Then if it is true, you want to carry out some certain operations or some certain functions. But if it is false, you want to carry out something else entirely. So in this code, what we can do is we say if this is true, run this. Else, else is like default for when your condition is false. So if it is false, we want to say the number is a negative number. Because anything that is not greater than 0 is supposed to be negative, which means it is less than, right? It's supposed to be a negative number. So I save this. So now let's go back. You will see that we still get a positive number printed out. So now let's change this value from 5 to -5. So on doing this, it means this condition will now be false here. So if this is false, it's no longer run this line. It's no longer run this operation. It will now skip over to this else. All right, because this one is now false. And once it skips here, it will now run this one, which says the number is a negative number. So going back to our code, we now have -5 is a negative number. Okay. For now, there is a small bug in this code. And what I mean by there is a small bug is this. So let's say I change the value instead of -5, I change it to 0. Okay. So we all know that 0 is not a negative number, right? Neither is it a positive number, right? So let's say it's neutral. Okay, but because the condition that we are testing for here is saying that the number has to be greater than 0. So if it is not greater than 0, even if it is equal to 0, it means this line will run because we said else. So once this one is false, every other condition will run this one. So it means if I come down here, you now have 0 is a negative number, but this is not correct. So instead, we want to say if it is 0, I want to say 0 is, we want to say the number is equal to 0, right? So we want to run a different set of conditions. So what we will do here is we have to test another condition, okay? And that brings us to else if statements, which is this, if else. So what this means is that first, it will test this condition to check that it is true. If it is not true, it will now come on to this other side that says else if, and test this other condition again. So it is only when this one is false and this one is false, then your else block will now run. So this code here is a little bit from this one in the sense that it is testing two conditions here. So to edit this, that is that we have to come here and say else if. So we have to test another condition and say if number is equal to 0, then what we want to do is we want to print out something else console.log and say the number is, I can directly write 0 here, or I can decide to use the curly brackets and say no, either of them is the same thing, right? So this is what I'm saying. So now if you notice, I am using 2 equal to sign here. I'm using 2 equal to sign instead of using this. Okay. So because in JavaScript, 1 equal to is an assignment operator in the sense that it is used to assign a value to a variable, just as it was used here to assign 0 to none. So you can't use 1 equal to again. So now what we use is double equal to. This one now means a condition testing if two values are equal to each other. That's what 2 equal to is. But what 2 equal to does is that it checks if their values are the same. Very soon we'll see 3 equal to. All right, but for now, let's just stick with 2 equal to. I save this. So now I'm expecting to get 3 results based on the value. So if the value is actually greater than 0, I'm expecting to print the number is a positive number. Okay, but now if the value is equal to 0, I'm expected to see the number is 0. But if the number is less than, which means if these two conditions are false, then this one will run for sure. And so now when we go back to our browser, we now see the number is 0 printed out on our console. So this is how conditions are used in JavaScript. Is there any question before I continue?
Okay. Sorry. The way you explained it is quite interesting, though. But I don't know if you can just do a recap of it again. It's like I missed few things in between it.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Okay, so going over again is that because I said JavaScript reads our code from the top down to the bottom. Okay. So what it will do here is, firstly, over here we are declaring a variable called num, and then using this equal to, we are assigning the value 0 into this. So which means num is now 0. Okay. So over here we are carrying out a set of operation. We actually want to carry out just one operation. We want to print out something to our console. So we want that operation to be based on some certain conditions, right? So firstly, the first condition we are testing is that we want to check if the value we have in num, if it is greater than 0. Okay. So if it is greater than 0, which means this first condition, this first if statement, right? So if you test this condition, if num is greater than 0, so if this condition is true, it will now run this block, which means it will neglect these remaining blocks. It won't go here anymore because this one is true. And now, what does this block say? The operation to be carried out in this block is that it wants to print to our console the number, which is the value itself, is a positive number. That's what this block is supposed to do. That's what this operation is about, right? But if peradventure the condition that we tested here became false, which means probably the value is not greater than 0, so it's less than 0, probably -1, -2, or -3. That automatically makes this false, which means this block will now be skipped. This operation will not be carried out. Okay, it's now go to the next line that says else if. So for else if runs when this first side has given you a false value, so it comes to this case. And else if has its own condition to be tested, right? So now test this condition again. So if this condition gives you true, then it run its own block, and its own block is saying log this particular thing to the control. But for this block is false and this block is false. The default operation to be carried out is the one in this else. Else doesn't need any condition to be tested. What it needs is the other conditions, which is these two conditions to be true. So this two are false, this one will now run. And right now we have none equal to 0, which means if you test this first, is 0 greater than 0? No, it's not. It means this block, this condition is not false, making this block false. So it will skip this and go to else if. So once it comes to else if, it will now test this condition again. Is 0 equal to 0? Yes, for sure, 0 is equal to 0 because none is equal to 0, right? So it is 0 equal to 0. And because this is true, we now have this block, this operation carried out in our right. So it will now keep this one, not have to come over to this else condition anymore because it has found the condition that is true. Let's say this was let's say this was -1. The norm was -4. So what will happen here is that this like it has always been doing, it will test if -1 is greater than 0, which is false. So this is false, so it skips this part and comes to this next part, and it tests this one again. -1 equals 0. Obviously, it is not. It skips this part again, and now it now comes to this else block, which is the default. So since this is default, it will now print out this one for us. So which means this one is true. Because if these other two conditions are false, it means the value has to be a negative number. It directly prints out this for us. So that is the logic this if condition follows. So I don't know if it's a bit clearer than it was before.
Okay.
Okay. So that is how conditionals are. And there's another type of condition, but we'll leave that for now, which later on we'll see that condition. Okay. So let's 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 do this exercise first. Okay, let's try out this exercise. So it says, let me see if you can.
Hello, sir. I said I have access to my computer now, sir. You said
Okay,
I should tell you when I have access to my computer.
okay, no problem. Just get it ready. Once you are done, I'll ask you to.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
No problem, sir.
Okay. So let's see if we can do answer this exercise here. So this exercise is get a user's input using prompt. We did this yesterday, all right, asking for the user's age. So the person input the person's age, all right. So now what you want to check is if the user is 18 years or older, right? We should give a feedback that says you are old enough to drive. But if the person is not up to 18, right, we have to give a different kind of feedback that says wait for the number of years. Okay, okay, this is a little bit complicated, but let's give another response that says you are not old enough to drive. So which means we want to test 6 things. So first we want to test if the person is 18 years old or older than 18 years old. So if the person is not 18 years old or older than 18 years old, then it means the person is less than 18 years. So we have to tell them that you are not old enough to drive. But if the person is older than 18, if he's 18 or older, then let's tell the person that you are old enough to drive. Do you get the question? Is the question enough? Or
Somehow.
should I come again with the question?
Okay.
Okay. So the question here is we should get an input from a user, which means we should be able to allow a user input their age, right? So we'll throw up the dialog box that says enter your age. The person puts in their age. So now we want to use condition to check the age of that person or the value the person input in a prompt. So if that age is greater than is equal to or greater than 18, then we want to print or alert the person, telling the person that you are old enough to drive. But if the person is not up to 18, we want to tell the person you are not old enough to drive. All right. So that's exercise we want to try out now. So let's try to do it. So please, if along the way you get lost with this, please call my attention so I can quickly go over it again. So first, we are supposed to throw a prompt to our user to compute the age. And from yesterday, we said you can throw prompts in this method in JavaScript. So prompts, and now inside it, whatever you put here will be displayed on our prompt. So we say enter your age. So this is the way we want the user to answer. So once I go to um, once I go to my browser, you now see this prompt here that says enter your age. Okay. So if the person enters, let's say, 9 over here and says, okay, all right, the person is executed in the prompt. So from yesterday, we saw that we can store the value from the prompt inside the variable, which means we can now do this. So now say let it be equal to this. So it means whatever value the person input in that prompt was shown to the person will now be stored inside it. All right. So we can easily see the value the person puts here, and then we can do anything we want to do. So let me just print that out for now. So if I go to my page, it shows the dialog that is inside your page. So let me see 12, and I say okay. So you now see 12 printed out there. Okay. So now the other part of the question says if the user is 18 years or older, all right, give a feedback that you are old enough to drive. So which means it's a problem of conditions. So it means we are printing out to our console here, all right, to only be done that when condition is there. So let's check, let's create our if condition and test. So say if the age the person has put in is greater than 18, right? Then that's the only time I want to console.log this. We'll start from and then we build up. So we are doing it more little by little. So right now, what we are seeing here is that once the user puts in the age, if the age is more than 18, then this line will run, which means it will print out the age, the console. So let's save this and go back to our browser. Let's put an age. So if I put in 12, 12 is not greater than 18. Right? So I don't expect anything to be shown on my console. So if I do this, nothing is shown on my console because putting 12 makes this condition. So if it is false, this part can run. So nothing happens. But now let's make this bigger than let's make it bigger than 18. So here if I put in 19 is bigger than 18, right? So if I put in 19, so and I say okay, you now see it printing out here because 19 is greater than 18. So we can say what we want to print up here is that we are old enough to drive. So instead of printing out age of this again, we want to print a string that says you are old enough to drive. I will save this. So it means this line will only run when the number is greater than the age greater than. So let's test it out again. So enter your age, I put in 20. You are old enough to drive. So let me refresh again and put in a value that is less than 18. Let me say 17. You see, it doesn't print out. But from this my question, I want to print out something else if the condition is false. So we want to see else console.log you are not old enough to drive. And I save this. So before now, when I put in a value that is less than 18, nothing shows on our console because there is no condition for that, right? So now going back, let's try putting 17 again. You now see you are older, right? Because the age of the person is not up to 18. Okay, but just like other applications we built, there is a small bug in this. Why? Because the question says 18 and older. So if the person is 18, we should show the person that you are old enough to drive. But now, if I refresh this and I put in 18, and I do okay, it says you are not old enough to drive. Okay, this is a bug because it's not actually behaving like we want it to behave. So why is it actually behaving like this? Because this condition here says if the age is greater than 18. So 18 is not greater than 18. All right. And that is why it is taking, when the age is 18, it is taking this one to be false and coming down here. So we need to make an adjustment. So there are two ways we can make these adjustments. So first, we can either say if the age is greater than 17. So this way, it considers everything that is greater than 17. So it considers 18, 19, 20, and above, all right, as old enough. So now, if we go here, and I put in 18, and I say, okay, it now shows us you are old enough to drive. So this works. So another way is if we still want this to be 18, it means we have to say it should be greater than or equal to 18. So this is a new condition here. Okay. This now is testing if a value is greater than or it is equal to. So if it's either equal to or greater than, the two of them will work. So if I save this now and I go back and I put 18 and I say, okay, it shows you are old enough to drive. Let me refresh and put 18, 17 rather. I put 17. Since you are not old enough to drive, if I go back and I put 30, it says you are old enough to drive. So this way, we've been able to fix the bug and get and answer the question that we were given to answer. So, is there any question on this, on how we chose to solve this like this?
Sir, please, can you allow me to see the VS Code again? Though I got the outcome, how the outcome comes, I want to see it again, the VS Code, how
Okay.
you wrote it. Okay. I think I got it now. Okay. Okay. So let's
Okay.
this greater equal to 18 is what we bring out those two options at the end of the day, right?
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
The question is, assuming we just put only greater than 18, is not
Yeah.
going to bring out this second console.log which says you are not old enough to drive.
Uh, no, not exactly. So what this greater than and equal to does is that it is checking if the age is greater than or it is equal to. Okay, so if the value is either greater than or equal to 18, then it will run this one and skip this one. But
Okay.
if this was not, if a value is not greater than or equal to 18, it means it is less than 18, right? So which makes this false. So once there's a value that is less than 18, this one will now run. So that's how it works.
Okay. I get that. And then, sorry, there's a question I also want to ask. Sorry for taking you
Okay?
back. I know you have talked about
No,
it
it's fine.
yesterday. How
Okay.
do we link this JavaScript to HTML? Just like we have been linking
Linking
CSS to
CSS.
HTML.
Okay. Okay. We talked about we the original method that showed us yesterday was this. Although somebody asked the question yesterday and showing us the different way. So the way we do it is, let me open up this structure. So the way we do it is we use the script tag right? So this is the opening script and this is the closing script. So while we use link for CSS, we use link for CSS. For JavaScript, we use scripts, right? And then we have this source attributes in our opening tag. So it is inside this source attribute, you now put the path to your JavaScript file. Okay. And
Okay, now,
from there,
okay, sorry. Okay,
okay,
now is this JavaScript uh, part? I'm saying dot slash script. Is it part of it? That's the
okay,
confusing thing.
okay, okay. So this dot is how we use to navigate between different folders. And I said currently over here on my left, right, there are different folders and files, right? So inside this learn certified cohort 2, this is a folder. So if I open this folder up, you have all of these folders and files. VS Code is a folder, images is a folder, parents is a folder, then these remaining ones here are files, right? And if I open this parent folder, inside parent folder, I have index.html. Okay, so which is this file here that I am trying to link this JavaScript file to. So, but because this JavaScript file is not inside the same folder as this index file, right? I need to come out of this folder before I can see this. So this dot slash is just a way for me to come out of this folder and meet these other ones. So that's what this dot is. So if I remove this, right, and I do dot slash, I see every file or folder that is outside this parent folder that I created here. So you see form.html,
Okay.
bootstrap.html. So what we want is JavaScript, it is script.js file. So if I take the script, immediately this will now link my JavaScript file to it. So this dot slash is just the part, the absolute part of our file that we are trying to link.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So if this script file was in the same folder as this parent file, we won't need to put dot dot. All we need to do is probably dot dot slash or we just do slash. But because it is outside, we're doing dot dot to first come outside of our parent folder. Then we can see script.js. So yeah, this is how we link JavaScript file. And remember, it should be at the bottom of your body tag, between your opening and closing tag. It should be at the bottom. Okay. Yesterday we talked about how you can put it in head, but we'll leave that for now. So this is how you link JavaScript to HTML.
Okay, sir.
Is yeah. Is there any other question? Okay. So so what we did here is this application works. It works well, right? It works well already for us. But the question says, if the person is not up to 10, then we should state how many years the person needs before getting to 18. All right. So it should be like um you have to wait for so amount of years to drive. Like this one says you are left with 3 years to drive, right? So if the person is 15 years old, then it should show the person that the person has 3 years before they can be able to drive. If the person is 12 years old, it should tell the person that you have 6 years before you're able to drive, which means we have to do some sort of calculation here. So just to make sure our application works exactly as our question has requested, we have to do this. So this is how we actually build applications. You start building it little by little, step by step, until you get exactly what you want to build. So right now, all it shows us when the person is not up to 18 is that you are not old enough to drive, which is not descriptive completely. So we want to make sure that we can tell the person how many years is required for the person before they can be able to drive, right? So first, let me place this. So this says you are left with 3 years to drive. So if I do this now, if the person is 12 years or 10 years, it will continuously show them you are left with 3 years to drive, because this value here is not dynamic. We want it to be dynamic. We want it to be based on the age of the person, which means you have to calculate 18 minus the person's age, right? Because if the person is 15 years old, 18 minus 15 is 3 years. So it means the person has 3 years to turn 18, which will make them eligible to drive. So it means you have to do a calculation here. Okay, what I'm saying is, if we consider like this and we go to our application and it says enter your age, if the person puts in 12 and says okay, this is not state, yes. Okay, if the person puts in 12 and says okay, you see you are left with 3 years to drive. If I refresh again and now I put in, let me say 5, and I say okay, it still says you are left with 3 years to drive because it is not dynamic. So we want this value to change based on the person's age. So we now use the dollar sign and the curly brackets. So inside here, we will now do our small calculation, which is 18 minus the age the person puts. We are using 18 because 18 is our benchmark. Like want to be sure that this person is up to 18. And then we are subtracting the age the person has put in. Okay. So doing this now, you now see that the age will now change based on the age the person has put in, like the number of years remaining for the person. Okay. So if somebody now puts in 5 as their age and says okay, it calculates and tells them that you are left with 80 years to drive, which means you still need 13 years before you will be able to get to 18 years, which makes you viable to drive. If we now change, let me refresh, and I say the age is 15 years, you can now see you are left with 3 years to drive. So with this solution here, with this code here, we've been able to solve our exercise to answer specifically what that exercise requested from us. So is this adjustment clear to us, or it doesn't really um, explain itself properly to you? I can go over it again. Okay, I will take the silence as to mean it is clear. Okay, so I would like us to just try one other exercise. Okay, for now, I want us to incorporate um, something we've learned before now. So before now, for arrays, we talked about um, using includes as a method to check if an item is inside an array. So let's say Let me find one. Okay, let's say I have this array. I have these variable numbers, and inside it, I have an array of numbers from 1 to 5. Okay, so now I want a situation such that I want JavaScript to go through this array. I would give it a number, all right? And I want JavaScript to search this array to see if it has this number inside this array. If it doesn't have the number, then I want it to print out to me that the array does not include this number. Okay, I don't know if the question is clear enough. Please confirm if the question is clear. No? Okay, let me go over it again. So we have an array from 1 down to 5. So I want to create an application such that I would ask the user to put in any number they want to, probably from 1 to 10. And then let's say the user inputs 10. So I want JavaScript to now take this value I have given to them and search through this array if they will find that value. If they find that value, then they should print yes, this array contains this value. But if they don't see the value inside this array, then they should print no, this array does not include this value. So that is the simple application we are trying to build. Okay. So let's start again little by little. So for us to do that, it means you need the user to be able to impute a value, right? So this means we need a prompt. So let's say, let's answer. We're creating a variable answer, right? And we are saying should be equal to prompts. So whatever the person puts in here, enter a number from 1 to 10. Okay, so whatever anybody puts inside the prompt will now be stored inside our answer. So once they put in a value, we can now test our condition to see if that value is included in this array. So how do we write that? We can say if, because it's our condition, we say we want to test inside this array, say numbers dot includes. Okay, because include is a method we just saw few minutes ago that checks if an item is contained in an array. So if it includes answer, right? If it includes answer, then what I want to do is I want to console.log. Yes, your value is included in the array. Okay, so starting again from the top, we have a variable of numbers that has 1 to 5. Okay, and now after this, we are prompting the user to put in a value from 1 to 10, any number of their choice. Although, because we're not doing any serious validation, even if the person puts in a value that is greater than 20, uh, this code will still work. But we can see how we modify this code to make sure we get exactly what we want. So now, when the user puts in a value, right, what will happen is that it will store that value inside the answer. Then it will now test this condition. the number we've given, is this included in this array? If yes, it should print out this. If no, which is else, then I want to console.log no, your value is not included in the array. And I save this. So going back to our code, once this refreshes, now it says enter a number from 1 to 10. So if I put in 4 and I say okay, nothing is printed out here. So it's not printing out anything. So let's see. So it's supposed to print out, yes, your value is included in the array, right? But it is not. So you might think this code is wrong, but no, they're just having a small bug, right? So to see it, let's see type of answer. So what I'm doing here is let's see. Let's try this again, and let me see if I can find out the bug. Okay, no, your value is not included in the array. Okay, so there is a small bug here. Okay, because I put in 1 and it's running this line instead of running this line, because 1 is here, right? So I want to check, there's a problem with our answer, so I'm using type of. So I am convinced that the value we are getting here is giving us a string, but the values here are all numbers. Okay, let's go back to our include. Let me see type of. Okay, let's just go on. Okay. So what is happening here is that answer, once somebody puts in a value inside here, all right, be it a number or a text, it's automatically converted to um a string. So if I do type of answer, right, and I run this again, and I do 1, okay, it's not printing out for us. But what is happening here is once I put in a value in the prompt, it returns that value as a string. So when I put in 1, it's returning answer as this. So when JavaScript compares this to this, it sees that this is a string, but this is not string, right? So it runs this for us. So let's try to convert this to an integer. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to convert the value we get. I'm trying to convert it to a number, so we'll know if it actually if that was where the bug is coming from. So on doing that, let me put in 1 and I say okay. Let me refresh. One. Okay, so you now see it's working. Yes, your value is included in the array. So what we encountered here is that once you put in a value inside this prompt, once you put in a value inside this prompt, as if we say text, this is a string, right? But when you do this, you're expecting a number instead. But because you're writing your value inside a prompt, it automatically changes the data type from number to string. So JavaScript is programmed that way by default. When you put in a value inside a prompt, it becomes a string. So for us to convert this back to a number, we had to use pass it over here. So instead of writing it here, all right, this might come off wrong to you. So instead of passing it here, you can pass it here as well. Say pass it. And then you take it out from here. You don't need it here. And you see. Okay, so this is the same thing as we've done. What this does is that it asks for a prompt, takes the value of that prompt, and then it converts it immediately to an integer, and then it stores it inside this answer. So right now, over here, it is comparing this with these values here as numbers, all of them together. And so when you save, let me cancel this and do it again and refresh. I put in a value 3. Remember 3 is in our array. So if you do okay, it says yes, your value is included in the array. But if you put in, let's say 7, remember 7 is not in our array, and I say okay, it shows you no, your value is not included in our array. So this here is how you start to mix these concepts, these basic ideas you have already, in order to form an application one by one. So this will be where we would call it a day for today. So if you have any questions, you can bring in your questions before I quickly help our colleague out with the issue yeah, he's having. So if there's any question, please throw your questions. None? Okay. If there is none, then I would I would say we are done with today's class. And additionally, you can now present your screen so uh we can walk through the solution your to the error together. Are you there? So for this week I will be posting the assignment on group. So you just walk through some things to just keep you busy while you're still refreshing your memory with HTML and CSS. Yes, I'll just put a brief assignment on there. So Mr. Adesina, you can go on to share your screen and while we try to fix the bug. So if you can wait up if you can wait up in the meeting, it's fine. But if you cannot, we are done for today. So you can log out of the call and see you same time on Saturday.